Hey, startup founders, early stage entrepreneurs, and overall business junkies. This is Ian Scott Cohen with the Founder Underground back for another video, part 2 of our customer discovery process. So you can see here, if you haven't watched part 1, I'd suggest going back and doing that. But right here, we're at the end, we're at the start of part 2. So we've just completed our form that helps us define our target audience. So you probably have seen this finished screen where it's got the stars and next steps. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the results of that target audience exercise and put it into ChatGPT with some help from your friends here at the Founder Underground. So what I'm going to do, I submitted the form. Now it wants me to check my inbox for an email from this address, notifications@typeform.com. So I'm going to jump over to my email window. I don't know why that is there. So let's check out my email. You can see Typeform notification. It says your ChatGPT prompt for customer discovery. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now you've got a big long email here. So let's walk through what this says. So it says at the top, hey friend, thank you for completing the target audience survey after our founder bootcamp session. So why did we do this? We're understanding our target buyer and end user is foundational to building a successful business. So now it's time to turn those insights that we have into action. So we actually want to figure out what customer discovery interviews are going to look like, what questions can we ask, and most importantly, what are the critical assumptions that we have when we think about this idea that we have. So as it says here, it says below you'll find everything that you need, including a pre-built ChatGPT prompt designed specifically for you. It's going to help you identify those critical assumptions, craft discovery questions, and find actionable ways to actually reach this audience. All right, so let's dive in. Step 1 here. You're going to copy the ChatGPT prompt below. Copy and paste the following prompt, so everything within the quotation marks below, and then stop before step 2. All right, so you're going to open up ChatGPT and paste this in. Now you'll notice as I go through this that my target audience responses have already been inserted into this template. You don't actually have to go and re-enter them at all. We've done that for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up ChatGPT. So you click this link if it's not already open. I have it here open in my second tab. I'm starting a brand new chat conversation. Now it says, note, scroll past the prompt below to view steps 2 through 4. So you'll see here, again, it says copy and paste everything within the quotation marks. So my first quotation's here. And if you want to read this, you can. You certainly don't have to. But this is the instructions that we're going to give ChatGPT to help you out with coming up with customer discovery questions and process. So the first part is just telling ChatGPT who you are. I'm an aspiring entrepreneur working to refine my business idea. And then as you'll see, if you remember from the first video, here are all of what my answers were for my idea. Demographics, I'm thinking parents of young children. Again, the idea I'm working on is, what pain points do parents have with their current mobile game options for their kids? It's got the geographics, psychographics. This is like from the questions about what's motivating the parents. Again, these are my exact responses. You don't have to re-enter them. This is taken straight from your response to the form. And it's all neatly organized. So it goes down. For me, I also have the target end users. And then after the pain points, you'll notice that we include other instructions for ChatGPT. So it gives it a task. It's going to identify 3 critical assumptions for you based off of the information about your audience and the problem you're submitting. It's going to help you validate those assumptions by coming up with 5 to 7 customer discovery questions. And we're going to use the principles. We actually explicitly tell them from the mom test, which means we're avoiding asking for opinions or future predictions, focus on understanding past behaviors, avoid pitching your solution. So this is all the stuff that we go over when we teach customer discovery. And then it's also going to give you a refined problem statement, recommend discovery channels, and it's going to give you also finally highlighting areas for improvement. Now, going back to step 1, we're going to copy this prompt. So starting at the first quotation, I'm going to scroll all the way down. And I'll stop before step 2. Here's my end quote here at the end of possible with the exclamation point. So I've got everything. I'm going to Control C, or you can right click, copy. And now I'm going to go over to ChatGPT and I'm going to paste it into the prompt window. All right, so Control V, or right click and paste. And you can see it all goes in there. Don't worry about if there's spaces in between things or if there's, things bunched together. ChatGPT can work that out, but it's got my entire response in here. So that's in there. Before I hit enter, I'm just going to check the next steps. So it says, once you paste the prompt into ChatGPT, follow its instructions step by step. All right, so let's do it. I've got the entire prompt that I copied out of my email into my prompt window. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, hit the little arrow button here, and let's see what happens. All right, so I gave it this whole thing. You can see it immediately starts helping out, which is really great. So we're going to let it run here for a second, and this should only take, probably less than 20 seconds. It's got some assumptions brewing. It's got refined problem statements, discovery channels. It's going to give you a lot of amazing information that is aligned to how we know customer discovery should be done. All right, so now it's finished. I'm going to go back up and let's read through the results. So again, here's all the stuff from the target audience form that I put together in the last exercise. So step one, it's identified 3 critical assumptions about, this is my idea for millennial parents looking to find better options for mobile games for their kids. So these are assumptions I'm making. ChatGPT has identified them. This is the key part of starting a business. You need to figure out what are my assumptions I'm making about the people that I want to sell to. So based off everything I put in, it says assumption number 1, parents are actively looking for engaging, educational, and affordable mobile games for their kids. So what it's saying is, based off everything I told it about my target audience and the problem I think that they have, this is an assumption I am making currently. I assume parents are actively looking for engaging, educational, and affordable mobile games for their children. That is an assumption. Now, we might all sit here and say, hey, of course, a lot of parents are looking for that. But we don't know that for sure, and we need to know more about that if it is true. Like, what does that mean? What do they find to be engaging or educational? What does affordable mean? These are assumptions that I'm making and why customer discovery is so important. So I can prove or disprove, also known as validate or invalidate, these assumptions. Second assumption I'm making, in-app purchases and paywalls in existing games are a significant source of frustration for both parents and children. So I'm assuming this is a point of frustration. Now, my brothers told me about this. I think it's a frustration to them, but that doesn't mean they're representative of everybody. Maybe it's just them. And so we want to validate this assumption. Do in-app purchases and paywalls in existing games actually cause a significant source of frustration for both parents and children? And lastly, children prefer uninterrupted gameplay and value fun, non-repetitive, high-quality experiences. Again, this might sound obvious. Maybe it's not, though. We don't really know. We're making assumptions. And too many people start businesses without validating critical assumptions. So we want to know, is this true? Do children actually prefer uninterrupted gameplay and value things that are fun, non-repetitive? Do they care if something's repetitive? They might not. And high quality experiences. What does that even mean, high quality? All right, so ChatGPT has identified 3 critical assumptions. These are not the only assumptions, but these are 3 important ones. And over time, we'll identify and validate or invalidate more of them. All right, so it's done that for us. Now, we talked a lot about customer discovery using things like the mom test and other methods. So now it's going to give me questions for each assumption that I can use in conversation with parents. All right, so step 2, validate the assumptions with discovery questions. Here's the assumption 1 restated. The first one was parents are actively looking for engaging, educational, affordable mobile games for their kids. So here's some questions it's come up with. Let's check them out. Can you describe the last time you searched for a mobile game for your child? What were you looking for? So again, these are questions. If I want to find a parent who's got a young child, and I'm going to ask them these questions and record their answers, through notes, or if they allow me to record the actual conversation on my phone or whatever. These are the questions I'm going to ask them directly. And so, can you describe the last time you searched for a mobile game for your child? This is straight up the best kind of question for customer discovery. You want to actually ask them about previous experiences. What did they actually do last time? Not what would they do, not what they hope to do. We just want to know what they did. because that is a much better representation of their behavior than what they hope to do, which a lot of us have hopes, but we're terrible at predicting our future behaviors. Okay. What factors do you consider when choosing a mobile game for your child? So, do they consider whether it's engaging? Do they consider whether it's educational? We want to hear them tell us what they consider. I don't want to presume, and I don't want to lead them either. So, you notice I don't ask them, do you consider do you consider whether a game is educational when you go for a mobile game? I don't ask them that straight up. I ask them, what factors do they consider? That's what's important. And then they tell me, why are those important? How do you currently ensure the games your children play are educational or productive? Can you share an example of a mobile game your child has enjoyed? What stood out about it? So this is another great question. Having them tell me directly, oh, here's a game my kid loved. They loved Angry Birds, and they kept talking about the red colors of the birds, whatever it might be. This is a gold mine if they can tell you these experiences for understanding their kids and how they themselves as the parent think about the game. Have you ever decided against downloading or buying a mobile game for your child? What were the reasons? Again, this helps me figure out, okay, I want to know what they like. I also want to know what they dislike. What do you usually spend on games or educational apps for your child in a month? How does that feel for your budget? Again, this is a past experience question. Are they spending just $1 a month, or is it $100 a month? We want to get a sense for, is this a problem, and how much money are they actually spending? Because this also tells us how much money they're probably willing to pay. If a parent says to me, well, we usually spend like $100 a month on games for a kid. Now, I have no idea if that's ridiculous or not. It sounds crazy, but it's possible. If they say that, then I know, okay, well, that means they're capable of spending $100 a month at least. Maybe they tell us they're not and how they feel about their budget. But we know that is a number they've actually spent, which means that as I price my game, if I ever get to that point, I can keep that in mind and probably price it beneath $100. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every question here, but ChatGPT has taken each assumption and rewritten it for me along with the questions that can help me validate or invalidate the assumptions when I'm talking directly to parents. So I'll just look at one or two from each of these. So my second assumption was in-app purchases and paywalls and existing games are a significant source of frustration for both parents and children. So I'm assuming that these paywalls and in-app purchases are actually frustrating. Maybe it's just specific to my family. So a question I can ask, can you walk me through a recent experience where in-app purchases disrupted your child's gameplay? Now, if they can't, that's interesting in itself. Maybe it happened yesterday. They'll tell us. How do you currently handle in-app purchases requests for your child? What works and what doesn't? So do you make it so they can just auto pay themselves? Or are they only allowed a certain amount? Or is this even an issue? So on and so forth. It's going to be many more questions. For assumption 3, children prefer uninterrupted gameplay and value fun, non-repetitive, high-quality experiences. So this is my third critical assumption. And I can ask them, can you tell me about a time your child got bored with or stopped playing a game? What caused it? So that's a good example of telling me about a game and where they kind of ran into a wall. So it can help me as I'm designing a potential game to make sure that I avoid some of the things that make their child bored, potentially. What does your child usually say or do when they encounter paywalls? So this is really important. If the child always says, screams across the house, "Mom, paywall," I can actually, use that to validate how interruptive this whole thing is. But also, as I get into thinking about how do I want to market this, how do I want to tell that story, I can use some of those examples, just the language, because if it happens with one kid and their parent, there's a chance it happens with others, and so on and so forth. Okay. So ChatGPT has given me a bunch of questions that I can use actively in customer discovery interviews, in surveys, in posts, in different, where I can find these different parents. Then step 3, we asked it in our pre-written prompt. Again, this is all based off the target audience form that you filled out, and we created this prompt for you. Step 3 is we asked ChatGPT to refine the problem statements. So it's giving me a current problem statement, the one I actually wrote, and then a refinement. So like I said, when we were filling out the form in part 1, you don't have to worry too much about grammar because ChatGPT is going to help us out to really refine these. So I wrote originally, millennial parents struggle to find engaging and educational mobile games for their children that are not riddled with in-app purchases. Here's a refined version from ChatGPT. Parents struggle to find mobile games that balance fun, educational value, and affordability without frequent interruptions from in-app purchases. So it's refined, it's specific, and it's much cleaner. Second, parents are currently buying less educational games, paying lots of money for in-app purchases, or spending even more money on higher-priced activities. So this is what I wrote in response to what do I think parents are doing now to address this problem. They refined it as parents feel trapped between costly in-app purchases, expensive activities, and a lack of affordable, high-quality educational games for their children. Again, much cleaner, much more coherent than what I wrote. And then finally, I said parents get frustrated at their kids having to stop playing a game every 10 minutes due to an in-app purchase. They refined it. Parents feel frustrated when frequent paywalls interrupt their children's gameplay, causing them to repeatedly intervene and spend more money. Again, refinement helps me. I want to use the refined versions, especially as I continue to go down this discovery path. It'll help me more clearly invalidate or validate some of my assumptions. All right, so the fourth thing that so far what we've done is ChatGPT has identified 3 critical assumptions with my target audience and the problem I think that they're having. It's identified and written out questions aligned to each assumption that I can actually use to ask parents, or in my case, or whoever your target audience is. You can ask these questions directly, and it'll make sure you get good responses because it's aligned to our best practices for discovery. It's giving me refined problem statements to help me better understand and better articulate what it actually is I think I'm solving for. And then here's where it gets super cool. Step 4, we asked it to actually recommend to us discovery channels. Channels meaning places where I can actually connect with my target audience. Like, how can I find these people to talk to? Obviously, I can talk to my family, but that's just one group, and they might not be representative. So you always want to try to go out and find people you don't know or you're not directly connected to, so you get a more representative sample across your target audience. So for me, again, going for parents, it recommends, okay, I can look for parent-focused online communities. So there's tons of Facebook groups for parents. It's giving me a couple of actual examples, I think. I can look on subreddits, like a subreddit for parenting, or this mom subreddit. It recommends educational and tech blogs. I can reach out to these bloggers, influencers who review children's educational products and games, and I can even just read their reviews. Maybe they say some of the same stuff. I can look at local parenting networks. So maybe there's parenting events. Maybe there's stuff on Meetup. I can go to actual, places where parents are, school fairs, school events, library events, parenting workshops. So these are all really good ideas to get me started in thinking about where can I actually connect with my target audience. All right, step 5. And I should say these are not exhaustive. So you got to come up with your own ideas. You got to actually take the steps. These are just to get you going, but there are tons of ways to reach people in today's interconnected world. So make sure you try to use at least 2 different ways I would recommend. All right, step 5, finally, we asked it to give me some areas for improvement. How can I improve my target audience and this discovery process? First suggestion for me is, it says define clear demographics and psychographics. So that means, they want to narrow down the age range for a clear target audience. Are we talking about 2-year-olds or are we talking about preteens? That's a good question. I definitely want to refine that because a game for, a 4-year-old is obviously not going to be the same type of game as it would be for a 12-year-old. It also suggests that I could specify income ranges for better understanding of pricing sensitivity. So as I interview people, if I can get a sense for how much money they take in as a household, maybe that leads to patterns about what level of pricing they'd be open to or who actually experiences more price frustration than others. The second suggestion is clarify the product scope so I can define what educational means. Does it mean STEM focused? Does it mean language skills? Does it mean critical thinking? That's a good question. And some of this is going to come out in my customer discovery interviews. They're going to tell me, what does a parent think is educational when they say that? Do they even use that word? Maybe they don't. They also suggest decide if the product is purely mobile or can extend to other platforms. That's a good question. So one thing I can ask parents in that case would be, are their kids playing, the last game they played or yesterday where they spent most of their time playing, was it on the tablet or was it on their mobile phone or was it on an actual computer? That'll help if I get to the design portion of come up with a solution, you'll want to obviously pick out the platform they're actually using. Finally, their suggestion, there being ChatGPT, test for overlap in the pain points. So ensure the frustrations of the parents align with the children. So maybe the children love these games and they just want a version that doesn't have the paywalls. Or maybe the parents love the games and the children hate them. So we want to make sure, in my case, where the buyer and the end user are different, we want to make sure that they align in some way so I can actually figure out the right solution that meets both their needs, because that's going to be key. We all know parents aren't going to buy something for their kid if they know their kid's going to hate it. They want to buy stuff they know their kid's going to love. Another suggestion, I could validate whether tech-savvy parents represent the majority of the audience or just a segment. So is it only tech-savvy parents who have this problem, or is it all parents? And, the tech-savvy ones are just one group within that larger group of parents. By focusing on these refinements and systematically validating assumptions, your customer discovery process will be focused and insightful. All right, so that is what ChatGPT will produce. Now, you can take this further. It has all this context now. It has all my information about the problem statement, the pain points I think exist. And so you can keep going. I'm going to do one quick example, but you can really keep using this conversation, this chat with ChatGPT to further refine your discovery process and ultimately your business concept. So I might say, okay, let's say I want it to help me. All right, I know a bunch of parents via email, so I want to email those parents, but I don't know what to write to them. So maybe I would have it write up an email for me. So I can say, okay, ChatGPT, those suggestions were super helpful. Now you don't actually have to say that, but I like to, give it some feedback and that, hey, I really appreciate what you said, so that it knows that it's on the right track itself. So now I'm going to say, now can you write me an email template that I can send to any parent to try and set up time for a customer discovery interview. I'll hit enter. And immediately it pops it out. So it's just a subject line, seeking your insights as a parent, quick chat. Hey parent, I hope this email finds you well. My name is so-and-so. I'm working on a project aimed at creating better, more engaging and educational mobile games for kids. As a parent, your perspective is incredibly valuable. I'm reaching out to see if you'd be open for a quick 20-30-minute conversation. My goal is to better understand challenges parents and kids face, like balancing fun, education, and affordability in games. This is strictly a learning conversation. There's nothing to sell. If you're interested, here's a link to my calendar, blah, blah, blah. And now it gives me some tips for personalization. If you know specific details, such as their age of their child or interests, keep the tone friendly. So again, you can keep rolling with this. It can help you with so much of this stuff. I might even say, you know what, this email is nice, but I want a shorter one. I can say, that's a good start, but can you send me a shorter version that is more concise? And as you get more used to ChatGPT and you know what Gen AI is capable of, you realize how much you can really manipulate this thing and use it. So it gave me the same version, but much shorter and more concise. So, you can keep going with this. If I want to, ask it, okay, great. Can you craft a post I can use on Facebook? Same idea. Now, again, it has the context because I told it all the target audience, the problem, etc. So it can continue to do this. It even represents or suggests hashtags. So there you have it. That is part 2 of the customer discovery exercise, where we took the prompt that you created back in your email. Again, looking for notifications at typeform.com. It should say your ChatGPT prompt for customer discovery. You'll go in and you'll copy and paste everything between the quotation marks before step 2. Copy that over, paste it into ChatGPT, hit enter, and you are off to the races. So hopefully you found this helpful, that I walked through a full example, and this will get you started on your way to doing a really great customer discovery process where you can prove and disprove a lot of your assumptions about your target audience.